welcome back to Telling Tales with Mrs. Taylor, Thanksgiving version. The story that I'm going to read today, or I really shouldn't call it a story, because it's true. And it's based on how, believe it or not, we almost didn't have Thanksgiving. We almost lost it. I like this story because it helped my students when I taught school learn how to and identify persuasive writing, and it was a way that I taught kids to write persuasively. So that might be something you and your teachers can do after you hear this. But first I'd like to read a poem called Giving Thanks. We don't know who the poet was. The author is unknown. We give thanks for the hay and the corn and the wheat that is reaped, for the labor well done and the barns that are heaped, for the sun and the dew and the sweet honeycomb, for the rose and the song and the harvest brought home. Thanksgiving, Thanksgiving. We give thanks for the trade and the skill and the wealth in our land, for the cunning and strength of the working man's hand, for the good that our artists and poets have taught, for the friendship that hope and affection have brought. Thanksgiving, Thanksgiving. We give thanks for the homes that with purest affection are blessed, for the season of plenty and well-deserved rest, for our country extending from sea unto sea, for the land that is known as the land of the free. Thanksgiving, Thanksgiving. So let me get started now on reading Thank You, Sarah. It was put together by Lori Halse Anderson, and I think you're going to be kind of surprised about this story. I want two things I want you to get out of this story. She never gave up, and she really worked hard on persuading the politicians based on what she wanted to do for Thanksgiving. You think you know everything about Thanksgiving, don't you? How the Native Americans saved the Pilgrims from starving. How the Pilgrims held a big feast to celebrate and say thank you by having turkey, pumpkin pie, cranberries, and the works. Well, listen up. I have a news flash for you. We almost lost Thanksgiving. Without Sarah Hale, you might have had to go to school all week instead of only 2 days this week. You didn't know that, did you? It's true. Way, way back when skirts were long and hats were tall, Thanksgiving was fading away. Sure, the folks up in New England celebrated it. They'd roast a turkey and invite their relatives when the harvest came in. But the people in the South, they didn't have Thanksgiving. Not even in the West, and not in the mid-Atlantic states. More and more people were just starting to ignore the holiday. Thanksgiving was in trouble, and it needed a superhero. Oh no, not that kind. Thanksgiving needed a real superhero. Someone bold, brave, stubborn, and smart. Thanksgiving needed Sarah Hale. Now I know what you're thinking. She doesn't look like a superhero. Excuse me. She looks like a dainty little lady. But never underestimate dainty little ladies. Sarah Hale was every inch a superhero. Not only did she fight for Thanksgiving, she fought for playgrounds for kids, schools for girls, and historical monuments for everyone to enjoy. She argued against spanking, pie for breakfast, dull stories, corsets and bloomers and bustles. You might want to figure out what corsets, bloomers, and bustles are, because I'm not going to tell you. You can look that up. And very serious things like slavery. I would have liked Sarah Hale. As if that weren't enough, she raised 5 children, she wrote poetry, she wrote children's books, novels, and biographies. She was the first female magazine editor in America. She published great American authors like Henry Wadsworth Longfellow and Edgar Allan Poe. And believe it or not, she's the one who wrote Mary Had a Little Lamb. How did she do all these things? Well, she was bold, brave, stubborn, and smart. And Sarah Hale had a secret weapon. And this weapon never goes out of style, kids. She had a pen. Now, you may not have a quill pen. You may use your computer keyboard, but it's still the same thing. When Sarah saw something she didn't like, she picked up her pen and she wrote about it. She wrote letters. She wrote articles. She wrote and wrote and wrote until she persuaded people to make the world a better place. Nothing stopped Sarah. Sarah Hale loved Thanksgiving. She wanted the whole country to celebrate it on the very same day. When folks started to ignore Thanksgiving, well, that just curdled her gravy. What do you think that means? It just curdled her gravy. She picked up her pen. Sarah wrote letters, thousands of letters, asking politicians to make Thanksgiving a national holiday. She wrote magazine articles asking for her readers for help with this matter. The women of America listened. They put down their babies, their hoes, their skillets, and their washing. They picked up their pens and they wrote. When the letters arrived, the politicians listened too, and one by one the states officially made Thanksgiving a holiday. But that was not good enough for Sarah Hale. She wanted the whole country to celebrate together, just like a family. So she went to the top. Wonder what the top is or was. I bet you can guess. Sarah wrote to the president himself. His name at that time was Zachary Taylor. He refused. But did that stop Sarah? No. She waited for the next election and wrote to the new president, Millard Fillmore. He said no too. Did that stop Sarah? No, she was bold, brave, stubborn, and smart. Sarah wrote to the next president, Franklin Pierce. Would the National Day of Thanksgiving be wonderful? No, Pierce grumped back at her. Sarah penned an elegant letter to President James Buchanan. She gave all the reasons why America would be better off if everyone gathered on the fourth Thursday in November to give thanks. But President Buchanan disagreed with her. He had too much on his mind. Abolition, no slavery, we should have slavery, states' rights, secession. He just could not be bothered with worrying about a holiday. Well, Sarah felt like the stuffing had been kicked out of her. Everything was going wrong. America was at war. The North against the South. States that had promised to celebrate Thanksgiving, they changed their mind. The country was falling apart. It was a bleak and scary time. Did that stop Sarah? Ah, I hear you say no. Correct, you are correct. No way, because nothing stops Sarah. Superheroes work the hardest when things get tough. She picked up her mighty pen. She wrote another letter, but this time to President Abraham Lincoln. America needed Thanksgiving, Mr. President, now more than ever. And here she tries to keep persuading him. A holiday wouldn't stop the war, but it might help bring our country together. She signed the letter, folded it, and slid it into an envelope. She wrote Mr. Lincoln's name and address on the envelope and stuck on a stamp. She mailed the letter. She waited. And she waited. And then Lincoln said yes. Lincoln said yes, and the nation gives thanks. In 1863, President Lincoln made Thanksgiving a national holiday, a day for all Americans to give thanks together. It took, now get this, kids, you talk about somebody who doesn't give up. It took Sarah Hale 38 years, thousands of letters, countless bottles of ink, but she did it. Because nothing stopped Sarah. That bold, brave, stubborn, and smart lady saved Thanksgiving for all of us. Thank you, Sarah. I really enjoy this one because I can honestly say that I didn't realize how long it took to have Thanksgiving become a national holiday. Well, you can see how many years? Can you tell me how many years out there it took for her to get the Thanksgiving a national holiday? Did I hear somebody out there say 38 years? Well, maybe someday we can Zoom together so I can see your faces and we can interact with each other. I have a couple of activities that maybe your teachers would like to do with you sometime, and I know you only have 2 days of school, but you could do this after you come back. This is an activity called I Can Persuade You, and your teachers can just go online, Google it, just put in "Thank you, Sarah Hale," and it will come up, and you can get this nice little paper worksheet that you can work on, nice graphic organizer, and what I liked about this one was what is something that you care about and what would you do about it. Whatever your idea would be, who does it help? When would you need it? There's all sorts of other activities and questions that could go into your persuasive writing from this one. Some other questions that your teachers could ask you is, what was the problem in the book? How did the character try and solve the problem? Did she succeed in solving the problem? Another thing I liked about some of these activities is characterization. What kind of a person was she? I think we heard some adjectives, some describing words that describe Sarah in the story. So lots of different activities that can go along with this one. Before I go, there was one other thing. You could, as teachers, you could encourage your students to become an advocate for an issue that they feel strongly about. They could write to your principal, Mr. Halsey, Mrs. Van Dorn. You could write to the governor and even ask, how about to the president, to ask for a change. Lots of really cool activities in here. This is called Pick Up Your Pen and Change the World. There's a lot of different activities that go along with this, and we don't have time to go through all those. So I hope I'm giving you some things to think about and some activities that maybe you and your teacher can do together. So once again, have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and I'm sure I'll see you again sometime. Bye-bye.